It's wild to think of standing on the equator, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
You immediately picture this steamy tropical climate. But here's a curveball. Ecuador, smack dab on the equator, and its capital, Quito. Well, it often has this amazing year-round spring feel.
It really does.
And get this little piece of trivia, that iconic Panama hat, turns out it's originally from Ecuador.
That's a classic one, yeah.
Okay, let's really get into this because you recently shared some incredible travel materials with us about your trip to Ecuador and the Galapagos Islands back in August of 2011.
That's right, yeah. Sent those over.
We've been properly digging through your itinerary, your blog posts, even some of the science behind it all to, pull out the most fascinating stuff for you.
All right.
Our mission today is to give you the inside track on what a visit is really like, the totally unique world of the Galapagos, and some of the super interesting history and science that makes it so special.
It's so true about those initial surprises, though. They really do set the stage for understanding Ecuador and the Galapagos. It's a place full of, well, unexpected twists.
Like the altitude in Quito?
Exactly. When you first land in Quito, as your itinerary detailed, you're at a pretty significant height, 2,850 meters above sea level.
That's, what, over 9,000 feet?
Yeah. And that altitude, combined with its location right on the equator, is what gives it that consistently mild, spring-like weather all year round.
Huh. Okay.
And the city itself, as you experienced, has these two very distinct sides.
Yeah.
The old colonial center, beautiful squares, winding streets.
Right.
And then the more modern parks with all the contemporary hustle and bustle.
And that constant springtime. It sounds nice, but you mentioned it's a challenge for visitors. Physiologically.
Well, yeah, the altitude mainly. It just shows how even seemingly pleasant places can require some adaptation for people and nature.
Exactly. Your itinerary had you staying at the Hotel Patio Andaluz. Sounded absolutely charming.
Oh, it was lovely. Really captured that colonial feel.
Right in the thick of that colonial area, wasn't it? Just a couple of blocks from the Plaza de la Independencia.
Yep, perfect spot.
You were perfectly placed to really explore that historic heart of the city. And you definitely made the most of it the next day with that planned tour.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about visiting the Plaza de la Independencia, seeing the cathedral, the archbishop, and government palaces, seriously important historical buildings.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, that colonial architecture really tells the story of the region's past,
Definitely.
And your visit to La Compañía de Jesus Church, your itinerary described it as an Aladdin's cave of incredibly detailed gold carving.
Yeah, sounds incredible.
That level of ornamentation really gives you a sense of the immense wealth and influence the church held during that period.
Right.
And then, just a short walk away, the San Francisco Monastery. Completely different, but equally significant, dating all the way back to the 16th century.
Wow. And of course, you can't go to Quito without standing on the equator.
The Mitad del Mundo, yeah.
Your itinerary included that trip 25 kilometers north to the Equatorial Monument. The chance to literally stand with one foot in the northern hemisphere and the other in the southern half. I mean, that's an iconic photo, right?
Definitely a must-do photo op.
Plus, there's an ethnographic museum there, too, so you're getting a bit of cultural insight along with that cool geographic landmark.
Yeah, it adds another dimension.
Standing on the equator, it's such a fundamental geographical concept. Did you actually feel any different being in both hemispheres? Or is the real magic in just knowing you're there?
That's a great question. You probably don't feel a physical difference, no, but it's definitely a memorable experience, just knowing it.
Sure.
But for anyone planning a trip, here's something really important to consider. The altitude.
Right, you mentioned that.
Quito itself is high, and as your blog post noted, if you venture into the mountains, you can easily find yourself above 4,000 meters. Altitude sickness is a real concern.
Okay, good to know.
It's interesting that the blog mentioned acclimatization, staying really hydrated, and those local remedies like chewing coca leaves or drinking coca tea.
Oh, leaves, really?
Yeah, it's a traditional Andean remedy. These are practical tips that can genuinely make a huge difference in how comfortable you feel up there.
Absolutely good to know. And your blog also had some super useful practical advice for getting around Quito.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
The heads up about the taxis, those orange license plates, the fact they have meters.
Right.
Even panic buttons and cameras, it gives you a real sense of the infrastructure and maybe some safety considerations.
Definitely good things to be aware of.
And the two main bus terminals, the seats on the buses being numbered in reverse.
That's a quirky one.
Those are the kind of quirky little details that can actually save you a bit of confusion. Plus, it was reassuring to hear that the roads were generally in good condition.
That's good, yeah. Makes travel easier.
Oh, and you even mentioned the vibrant street art in Quito,
Ah, yes, there's some amazing stuff.
which adds this really cool contemporary layer to the city's visual appeal.
It's particularly noteworthy how these seemingly small details paint a picture of a functioning yet distinctly cultural urban environment. It's not just about the famous landmarks, you know.
Totally. It's the everyday rhythm.
Exactly.
Okay, so after soaking in the culture and altitude of Quito, it was time for the main event.
The Galapagos.
The big one, yeah. Your itinerary detailed a private transfer to the airport and that flight, with the layover in Guayaquil.
Standard route.
And that 20-kilogram luggage restriction. Seriously crucial information for packing.
Oh, absolutely. You really have to be mindful of that.
It really highlights that you're heading to a very specific and delicate environment where logistical details are key.
And the mention of the two airports that serve the Galapagos, Baltra and San Cristobal. And the possibility of your travel plans needing to be a little flexible due to maintenance that really underscores how remote and logistically complex travel in this region can be.
Right, you need to be prepared for adjustments.
But perhaps most importantly, those very strict rules about not bringing any seeds, fruits, vegetables, or any food to the islands.
Super important, yeah.
This is absolutely fundamental to protecting the Galapagos' incredibly fragile and unique ecosystem. Can't stress that enough.
Exactly. Then you boarded the Isabella II cruise ship. This sounds like an amazing way to see the islands.
It was fantastic, yeah.
A smaller size, just 40 passengers, which suggests a much more personal experience.
Definitely. Much more intimate than the bigger ships.
And with 3 English-speaking naturalist guides, you're really getting access to some serious expert knowledge.
That was key. The guides are incredibly knowledgeable.
It definitely sounds like a step up in terms of exclusivity and a bit of luxury.
One of the most remarkable aspects is the emphasis on those naturalist guides. In the Galapagos, the guides aren't just there to point things out. They are essential for truly understanding the environment and the wildlife.
Right, they provide context.
Totally. And the amenities you mentioned, air-conditioned cabins with outside views, a bar, dining room, sun deck.
Even a library and a jacuzzi.
Right. It's clear that while the focus is on exploration and discovery, there's also a real commitment to passenger comfort.
Sounds like a good balance.
The glass-bottom boat is a fantastic option for those who might not be as keen on snorkeling.
Oh, that's a great idea.
And having the snorkeling gear and wetsuit shorties provided is a really nice touch. Makes it easy.
Definitely. Then the arrival at Baltra Island, that small island right off the coast of Santa Cruz, that's the typical starting point for many Galapagos cruises.
Yeah, Baltra's the main airport hub, so most cruises start or end there. It used to be a U.S. airbase in WWII.
Ah, okay. Right, and from there, the real adventure began. Your itinerary for Santa Cruz Island included the iconic Charles Darwin Research Station.
A must-visit.
And of course, there's incredible giant tortoises.
Amazing creatures, just huge.
Seeing those ancient creatures up close must have been absolutely unforgettable.
It really was. Humbling, almost.
You also had an excursion up to the highlands and those fascinating twin pit craters, Los Camelos.
Yeah, those are cool. Collapsed lava tunnels, basically.
It's interesting that your itinerary pointed out that you're more likely to see tortoises roaming freely in the highlands between December and mid-April.
Right, that's their nesting season. They move around more.
Which was just outside your August visit. And Puerto Ayora is mentioned as the main town with growing facilities for tourists, so you get a sense of the human presence there.
Yeah, Puerto Ayora is the biggest town in the Galapagos. Lots of shops, restaurants, hotels now.
What was it about that encounter with the giant tortoises, whether at the research station or elsewhere, that really stuck with you?
Just their size, their age.
Yeah.
They seem so ancient and unbothered. And knowing how important they are to the ecosystem and the efforts to protect them at the research station is powerful.
Yeah, I can imagine. What stands out about Santa Cruz is how it acts as a central point. It's where research, conservation efforts, and tourism all come together.
That's a good way to put it. It's the hub.
Seeing the giant tortoises, whether in a controlled environment like the research station or potentially roaming in the wild, really connects you to the unique biodiversity of the islands and the crucial work that's being done to protect them.
Absolutely.
Next up was Tower Island, or Genovesa. Your itinerary described Darwin Bay as this almost completely enclosed, collapsed volcano.
Yeah, it's a flooded caldera. Pretty dramatic entrance.
And Prince Philip Steps, what a cool name.
It is a steep climb up the cliffs.
This island sounds like an absolute paradise for bird watchers.
Oh, it really is. They call it Bird Island for a reason.
Frigate birds, boobies, red-footed, Nazca, and your blog even mentioned that blue-footed boobies were a common sight on other islands.
Yeah, you see blue-footed boobies quite a lot, but Genovesa is famous for the red-footed ones nesting. And Nazca boobies, too.
Naughty terns, lava gulls, tropic birds. The list just goes on.
Seriously, birds everywhere.
And then that steep climb to see the masked and red-footed boobies and frigate birds nesting and those thousands of band-rumped storm petrels nesting in the cliffs. It sounds like the air must have just been alive with birdsong.
It was noisy, but in a good way, just teeming with life. Genovesa truly lives up to its reputation. The sheer number and variety of bird species is incredible.
It's a testament to that unique evolutionary path.
Right, exactly. The isolation of these islands has allowed these species to thrive and diversify in ways you see nowhere else.
Then came Fernandina Island, described as the youngest and most volcanically active.
Fernandina is raw. You really feel the geology there.
Recent lava flows, you can really picture the raw, powerful geological forces that have shaped this place.
Definitely. Stark black lava fields.
And Punta Espinosa, with literally thousands of marine iguanas basking in the sun.
It's an unbelievable sight, just carpets of them.
Plus those unique flightless cormorants, penguins, and sea lions all in one spot.
Yeah, Punta Espinosa is amazing for wildlife concentration.
That's like a concentrated showcase of some of the most iconic Galapagos creatures altogether.
Fernandina is a really powerful example of the Galapagos volcanic origins. That stark landscape, shaped by very recent lava flows, serves as a constant reminder of the ongoing geological activity.
And those marine iguanas, they're only found there.
Only in the Galapagos, yeah.
Huh.
Endemic. They're a prime example of wildlife adapting in incredible ways to a very specific and sometimes harsh environment, swimming in the ocean.
Incredible. Isabella Island, the big one formed by this chain of different volcanoes.
The largest island by far, made of 6 volcanoes fused together.
Wow. That short boat ride over to Tagus Cove with those historic markings left by pirates and whalers carved into the rocks.
Like historical graffiti. Really cool to see.
That immediately brings in the human history aspect of the islands.
Definitely. A tangible link to the past.
And then that uphill hike to Darwin's Crater, that saltwater lake with those panoramic views.
Worth the climb. Great views over the lava fields in the cove.
It's fascinating that Isabella is the only island that actually straddles the equator.
Yeah, the northern part is in the northern hemisphere, the southern part in the southern.
The sheer size of Isabella really contributes to its incredibly diverse landscapes and ecosystems, doesn't it?
Absolutely. From volcanic deserts to lush highlands. And those historical markings you mentioned at Tagus Cove are a tangible link to the early human interactions.
Yeah.
Pirates, whalers, later settlements.
Then James Island, or Santiago, Puerto Igas, with its black lava shoreline.
More amazing lava formations there. Grottos, pools.
Those brightly colored Sally Lightfoot crabs scuttling around.
So vibrant against the black rock.
Marine iguanas and Galapagos fur seals lounging about another incredibly diverse little ecosystem right there on the coast.
Yeah, Puerto Igas is great for seeing the fur seals, which are a bit different from the sea lions. More reclusive.
And the Sugarloaf volcano offering some great views, plus nearby Buccaneer Cove with its dramatic cliffs and dark sand beaches, really echoing that earlier pirate history again.
Definitely. Buccaneer Cove has that adventurous feel. Santiago offers a fantastic look at the variety of coastal habitats you find throughout the Galapagos.
Bartolome Island, tiny and volcanic, located near Sullivan Bay.
Bartolome is probably the most photographed spot.
That viewpoint with those incredible vistas of the almost lunar-like lava landscape and the iconic pinnacle rock.
Exactly. That's the classic Galapagos picture.
That's another image that just immediately comes to mind when you picture the Galapagos. And the chance of spotting those adorable Galapagos penguins and marine turtles swimming nearby.
Yeah, you often see penguins swimming right around Pinnacle Rock.
Yeah.
And snorkeling there is great. Bartolome's scenery really showcases the stark, almost otherworldly beauty of these islands.
And getting to see Galapagos penguins, the only penguin species that lives in the tropics, that must be special.
Always a real highlight for any visitor, yeah. They're tiny.
And finally, San Cristobal Island, which was your departure point.
Flew out from there, yeah.
It's mentioned as the easternmost island in the archipelago and also the provincial capital.
Right. Puerto Baquerizo Moreno is the capital city of the Galapagos province.
So it serves as another point of connection with the outside world, with one of the Galapagos airports located there.
San Cristobal, being one of the inhabited islands and having an airport, reminds us that while a significant portion is protected wilderness, there are also established human communities and administrative centers crucial to the island's management.
So just from your itinerary, it's clear you covered an incredible range of islands, each with its own distinct character and unique wildlife.
Definitely a good cross-section.
Now let's dive a bit deeper into the environment itself. The climate of the Galapagos being right there on the equator, but really moderated by those cool ocean breezes.
Yeah, the Humboldt Current is key.
That's a key point that both your itinerary and the climate information highlighted. You might need a light sweater in the evenings.
Especially on the boat, yeah. Can get breezy.
And while there's a slightly higher chance of rain between November and March, you could also experience that garua, that misty drizzle, in August and September, which is when you were visiting.
We had a bit of guru in the highlands, yeah. Keeps things green up there.
And the advice on practical footwear, good walking shoes, and those sporty sandals for wet landings sounds absolutely essential.
Oh, definitely. You do a mix of dry landings on docks and wet landings where you hop out of the dinghy into shallow water. So shoes that can get wet are a must.
It's particularly noteworthy how that cold Humboldt Current plays such a vital role, isn't it? Keeping the equatorial heat in check.
Hugely important. It brings up water from the deep ocean that's absolutely packed with nutrients.
Like fertilizer.
Kinda, yeah. Think of it like a natural fertilizer for the entire marine ecosystem. But it also keeps both the air and the water temperatures surprisingly cool for the equator. That upwelling phenomenon where this cold, nutrient-rich water rises to the surface is fundamental to the Galapagos' unique ecosystems, and the incredible abundance of marine life you see there supports the whole food chain.
And that Galapagos magic you wrote about in your blog, those unbelievably close wildlife encounters, the animals seeming to have absolutely no fear of humans.
It's astonishing, really. They just carry on with their business right next to you.
That really speaks to the incredibly protected status of the islands, conservation being the absolute top priority. That's a really powerful message.
It has to be. That's the whole point.
You also described the diverse landscapes you encountered. Crystal clear turquoise seas, beaches with sands of all different colors, green, red, black.
Yeah, the geology creates that variety.
Mangrove lagoons teeming with life, and forests filled with unique cactus. It really paints a picture of this incredible variety packed into a relatively small area.
It's amazing how much diversity there is from island to island, even within islands.
It's incredible to think these animals have evolved in such isolation, leading to this almost fearless interaction with humans. It must have been an incredibly special experience to witness that firsthand.
It really is. It changes how you think about wildlife. The fact that these islands were never actually connected to a mainland and were only discovered and inhabited by humans relatively recently,
Yeah.
that's a huge contributing factor to that unique animal behavior. They simply haven't developed the same ingrained fear of predators, including humans, that you would typically see elsewhere.
Makes sense.
And the Galapagos serving as this living laboratory for Darwin's theory of evolution, that's really the core scientific significance of the islands.
Right, the endemic wildlife.
Exactly. Evolving in slightly different ways on each individual island, the different types of tortoises and mockingbirds are classic examples, really vividly illustrates the process of natural selection in action.
Can you give a simple example, like the finches?
Sure. Imagine a population of finches lands on an island. Maybe some have slightly bigger beaks, some slightly smaller. If the main food source is, say, large, hard seeds.
The ones with bigger beaks do better.
Exactly. They can crack the seeds more easily, so they survive better, reproduce more, and pass on that trait for bigger beaks. Over generations, the average beak size on that island increases. That's natural selection.
Got it. The source material breaks down the Galapagos into 4 distinct regions: Western, Southern, Northern, and Central Islands.
Yeah, that's a useful way to think about them.
The Western Islands, like Fernandina and Western Isabella, being the youngest geologically with active volcanoes and those nutrient-rich water.
Right, the upwelling is strongest there.
That's where you're most likely to spot whales and dolphins. And they're the only place in the world you'll find flightless cormorants and a really high percentage of the Galapagos penguin population.
The Western Islands really showcase the raw power of volcanic creation and the subsequent explosion of marine life that's fueled by those nutrient-rich upwellings. The species endemic to this region are particularly adapted to those dynamic conditions.
Then the southern islands, like Española and Floriana, which are the oldest geologically with more eroded volcanoes and fertile soil.
Much older, yeah. millions of years older than Fernandina.
They've experienced more significant human impact, leading to ongoing restoration efforts. Espanola Island is the key nesting area for the magnificent waved albatross.
The only place they nest in the world.
Wow. And it boasts the most diverse range of wildlife, while islands like San Cristobal and Floriana blend that natural richness with a more pronounced human history.
The Southern Islands tell a long story of evolutionary history intertwined with the consequences of human interaction. The unique species found here, like that waved albatross on Espanola, really highlight the long periods of isolation that drove their specific adaptations.
The northern islands, and specifically Genovesa, that collapsed volcanic caldera, definitely lives up to its nickname as the Birders Island,
For sure.
with just an incredible number of different bird species. You mentioned red-footed, blue-footed, and Nazca boobies, storm petrels. It really is a haven for all kinds of avian life.
Genovesa's unique geological formation, the collapsed caldera, has created an almost perfect sheltered habitat for a vast array of bird species. Makes it a truly exceptional location for bird lovers.
And the Central Islands, which are clustered around Santa Cruz, they're intermediate in age,
Kind of in the middle geologically and geographically.
with a drier, more rugged appearance, but a really complex mix of both plant and animal life. You'll commonly see boobies, frigate birds, sea lions, land iguanas roaming through the cactus forests.
Yeah, good mix of iconic species there.
And the highlands of Santa Cruz are a prime spot for observing wild giant tortoises. These islands seem to be the most frequently visited by tourists.
Yeah, mainly because Santa Cruz is the main hub with the research station and Puerto Ayora. The Central Islands offer a really comprehensive overview of the Galapagos' diverse ecosystems, with coastal and highland habitats and a wide range of wildlife. Very popular for visitors wanting a bit of everything.
And it's worth just quickly running through some of those truly iconic species again. Galapagos penguins,
Tiny little guys.
the flightless cormorants,
Can't fly, but amazing swimmers.
those fascinating marine iguanas,
Like little dinosaurs.
the majestic giant tortoises,
The symbols of the islands.
Darwin's finches, so important.
Quito is Siri.
All those different types of boobies,
Gold-footed, red-footed Nazca.
the frigate birds with their puffed up chests,
The males with those big red pouches.
playful sea lions,
Everywhere. Very curious.
those brightly colored Sally Lightfoot crabs,
Splashes of color on the rocks.
the Galapagos fur seals,
A bit shyer than the sea lions.
and of course the waved albatross. It's like a superstar lineup of unique wildlife.
It really is an incredible collection of life.
And as your blog rightly pointed out, the Galapagos was actually the very first ever UNESCO World Heritage Site.
1978, yeah. Which really underscores its global significance for conservation. That designation truly emphasizes the exceptional natural value of the Galapagos and the long-standing international recognition of its immense importance.
Now let's talk about how these incredible islands even came to be the geology, their volcanic origin from that hotspot on the Nazca Plate.
Yeah, the hotspot theory is the prevailing explanation.
The way that plate slowly moves over this stationary hotspot, creating this chain of islands.
Like paper moving over a candle flame.
Right, with the oldest ones located towards the southeast, like Espanola, and the youngest ones towards the west, like Fernandina.
Exactly. The plate is moving roughly east-southeast over the fixed hotspot.
And the Carnegie Ridge, which is another chain of underwater mountains, also formed by this same geological hotspot. It's like a giant geological conveyor belt constantly creating new land.
Precisely. It leaves a trail as the plate moves. So the different ages of the islands aren't just random, they're like rings on a tree trunk.
Oh, good analogy.
Each one marking a point in time as the tectonic plate moved over this volcanic hotspot. The hotspot theory provides a really clear and elegant explanation for the sequential formation of the Galapagos Islands over millions of years.
And there are those two main types of volcanoes found in the Galapagos, those larger western volcanoes like on Isabella and Fernandina,
The big shield volcanoes.
with their distinctive inverted soup bowl shape and really deep caldera,
Yeah, huge craters on top.
versus the smaller eastern shield volcanoes that have much gentler slopes. It's interesting that the difference in their shape might be related to the varying thickness of the Earth's lithosphere.
That's one theory, yeah. Or differences in magma supply or eruption style. So a caldera is essentially a collapsed volcanic crater.
Like a giant bowl left behind after a major eruption.
That's a perfect way to picture it. A large basin-like depression that forms after a volcano erupts and the summit collapses inward. And the theories about that unique soup bowl shape of the western volcanoes are still areas of ongoing scientific research.
And the Galapagos are incredibly active volcanically. There have been over 50 eruptions recorded in the last 200 years alone.
Yeah, one of the most active volcanic regions on Earth.
And there are still several volcanoes that are considered currently active, like those on Fernandina and Isabella. That last major eruption on Cerro Azul on Isabella back in 1998 really serves as a powerful reminder of these dynamic forces.
Absolutely. It's a constantly changing landscape. The high level of volcanic activity is a direct result of its location near plate boundaries and over that hotspot.
You mentioned the Galapagos spreading center and subduction.
Right. There's seafloor spreading happening to the north, and the Nazca Plate itself is moving towards South America and diving underneath it, that subduction. All this tectonic activity contributes to the volcanism.
And those shield volcanoes with their gentle slopes from fluid lava flows. That's how Isabella formed, from 6 merging together.
Exactly. 6 shield volcanoes basically grew until they joined up to form the one massive island. Classic shield volcano formation.
Okay, let's switch gears now and talk about the human history of the islands, which is also pretty dramatic.
Oh, absolutely. Fascinating and often troubled.
The accidental discovery way back in 1535 by Fray Tomás de Berlanga,
The Bishop of Panama, yeah. Blown off course.
who, let's be honest, didn't exactly have a glowing first impression.
Yeah.
He famously described the land as dross worthless.
Ah, yeah. Not exactly love at first sight. Quite a contrast to how we see them today.
De Berlanga's initial negative assessment really highlights how human perspectives can dramatically change over time, doesn't it?
For sure. What he saw as barren and inhospitable, we now see as this priceless treasure trove of biodiversity. And there's even that intriguing, though debated, possibility of an earlier visit by the Incas.
Right, Tupac-Ipanqui.
Yeah.
That's another layer.
Then came the English pirates in the late 16th century, using the Galapagos as a strategic base.
Hiding out, resupplying.
Exactly. Ambrose Cowley's map and the naming of several islands, though most of those English names didn't stick.
Buccaneer Cove became a really important spot for them to get fresh water.
And tortoises.
And the giant tortoises, unfortunately, became a very convenient and long-lasting source of food for sailors on those long voyages.
Tragically, yes. They could keep them alive on board ships for months. The use of the Galapagos by pirates underscores its strategic location. But the tortoises paid a heavy price.
By around 1790, the whalers arrived in much larger numbers.
The whaling era, yeah. A different kind of exploitation.
Captain Colnett's map and the establishment of that famous post office barrel on Floriana Island, such a charming little piece of maritime history.
It is. Still there today. People leave postcards.
But the impact of the whalers was far more devastating than the pirates, right?
Oh, much more. The sheer number of tortoises and fur seals that were taken was enormous. It led to the near extinction of some tortoise races and massive declines in fur seal populations.
And even Captain David Porter's actions, like releasing goats onto Santiago Island as a future food source.
Yeah, it seemed like a good idea at the time, maybe, but had really long-lasting and negative ecological consequences. Introduced species are a huge problem.
Even Herman Melville, the author of Moby Dick, visited.
Yep, on a whaler.
But wasn't particularly impressed initially, although he did later write Las Encantadas, those sketches set in the islands.
It's interesting, yeah. His initial reaction was pretty bleak, contrasting with the later fascination. His writing did help bring some awareness, though.
Ecuador officially claimed the islands in 1832.
The next one, yeah.
And the first permanent settlement on Floriana Island by Jose Villamil soon followed. But tragically, even by the time of Charles Darwin's visit in 1835.
Only 3 years later.
Tortoises were already rapidly disappearing from Floriana due to being hunted for food.
It shows just how quickly human activity could devastate these isolated populations. Villamil's settlement marked a shift towards more sustained resource use, and Darwin's own observations about those declining tortoises were actually quite crucial for him.
Yeah, how so?
It helped shape his understanding of human impact on species survival, and maybe even planted early seeds about species vulnerability and change.
The source material then goes on to talk about later attempts at colonization, including prison colonies.
Not very successful, those harsh conditions.
And the increasing interest from Europeans and Americans after William Beebe published his book in 1924.
Beebe's book, Galapagos World's End, was huge, really captured the public imagination.
That led to the beginnings of ecotourism and more European immigration, like the Norwegians who settled on Floriana and Santa Cruz, and the famous Angermeyer
Like
brothers.
those early adventurous settlers. Their stories are fascinating, trying to make a life there.
And we can't forget the bizarre Floriana mystery of the 1930s, a truly strange and tragic series of events.
Oh yeah, the Baroness and her lovers, the disappearances, the deaths. Very mysterious. Did your research into the islands uncover any more local whispers or theories about that?
The sources mostly stick to the known facts, which are already pretty wild. But yeah, the Floriana mystery definitely adds a very dramatic and somewhat unsettling chapter. It still fascinates people.
World War II saw the establishment of U.S. Navy bases on both Baltra and Isabella Islands.
For patrolling the Panama Canal Zone.
Exactly. With Baltra eventually being transformed into the commercial airport that serves the islands today.
Then, 1935 was a real turning point,
A crucial year.
with the Ecuadorian government making the important decision to declare parts of the islands as protected wildlife preserves. It was a recognition, albeit a bit belated, of the serious damage that had already been done.
Yeah, the extinction of some tortoise races, the impact of introduced species.
Yeah.
It was becoming clear action was needed. That 1935 declaration was a vital first step towards formal conservation, even if full protection took more time and effort.
The establishment of the Charles Darwin Foundation in 1959.
A huge milestone.
And the Charles Darwin Research Station in 1964, and the initiation of those vital conservation programs, like the careful collection and incubation of tortoise eggs.
The captive breeding programs, yeah.
That was absolutely crucial. They even managed to save the Espanola giant tortoise race from complete extinction through these dedicated efforts.
An amazing success story. There were only about 15 left, I think. Now there are thousands back on Espanola.
Incredible. And then the Galapagos were officially declared a national park in 1959,
97% of the land area.
followed by the establishment of the surrounding marine reserve and the beginnings of carefully managed, organized tourism in 1970 with strict rules and regulations.
Right, limiting visitor numbers, requiring guides, setting itineraries.
It's a really inspiring story of increasing awareness and dedicated efforts to protect this truly unique place.
The formal establishment of the foundation and the park marked a really significant shift towards proactive conservation. And the carefully controlled growth of tourism is an ongoing balancing act, trying to bring economic benefits while minimizing environmental impact.
But despite all those efforts, there are still some really significant conservation challenges that remain.
Definitely not solved yet.
The increasing human population on the islands, the growing pressure on limited resources, ongoing fishing activities, illegal fishing sometimes.
Yeah, things like sea cucumber fishing have been problematic.
And the persistent threat posed by feral animals like goats, dogs, cats, and rats that have been introduced.
Invasive species are maybe the biggest ongoing threat. They compete with native species, prey on them, destroy habitats.
The explosive growth of the goat population on Volcan Alcedo on Isabella is a particularly concerning example mentioned.
Yeah, they had a massive eradication program there. It shows the scale of the problem. It sounds like the long-term future of Galapagos preservation is still far from certain.
Given the challenges of enforcing these rules across so many islands and tourists, how effective do you think these measures truly are in preventing the introduction of invasive species? It seems so easy for something to slip through.
That's a constant worry. Biosecurity is incredibly strict now, fumigating planes, checking luggage, controlling imports to the inhabited islands. But it's a huge challenge. The ongoing conservation challenges really highlight the complex interplay between human activities and these fragile ecosystems. Invasive species continue to pose a very significant threat. The situation with the goats really underscores the need for continued vigilance and effective, often intensive management strategies to safeguard the island's biodiversity.
Finally, let's delve into the pivotal role of Charles Darwin and his groundbreaking theory of evolution.
Can't talk Galapagos without talking Darwin.
His time as a naturalist aboard the HMS Beagle during its surveying mission, including those crucial 5 weeks he spent exploring the Galapagos Islands in 1835.
Just 5 weeks, but so impactful.
And his key initial observation about the subtle but significant differences between the inhabitants of different islands, the tortoises, the mocking thrushes, the finches.
Right, he noticed the mockingbirds differed from island to island, which really got him thinking. The finches came later, after experts back in England pointed out their significance.
Even though he only actually landed on 4 of the islands, he began to recognize that these seemingly similar species had distinct characteristics tied to their specific island.
His observations during his time in the Galapagos were absolutely pivotal in the development of his theory of evolution by natural selection. Those subtle variations he meticulously noted provided crucial early evidence for how species adapt to local environments over time.
He spent many years pondering these observations after his return,
Decades, really, collecting more evidence.
eventually publishing his journal as The Voyage of the Beagle, and then, of course, his truly groundbreaking and paradigm-shifting work on evolution.
On the origin of species. Changed everything.
It's really important to remember that the general idea of biological evolution had been around before Darwin.
Lamarck, for example, yeah.
But his monumental contribution was identifying the primary mechanism that drives it: natural selection.
Survival of the fittest, basically.
The principle of the survival and reproduction of those individuals best suited to their environment.
Darwin's true genius lay in identifying and articulating that driving force. His meticulous observations, combined with the wealth of evidence he painstakingly compiled, provided a compelling and scientifically sound explanation for the diversity of life.
He famously published his initial ideas jointly with Alfred Russel Wallace in 1858.
Wallace had independently come up with a similar idea, spurred Darwin into publishing his big book.
But it was the publication of On the Origin of Species in 1859 that really caused a global sensation and fundamentally changed our understanding of the natural world.
Absolutely. Huge impact, scientifically and culturally.
His concluding thoughts in that book, a really powerful statement about the grand and interconnected history of life, evolving from very simple beginnings. There is grandeur in this view of life.
Whilst this planet has gone cycling on according to the fixed law of gravity, from so simple a beginning, endless forms, most beautiful and most wonderful have been and are being evolved. It still gives you chills.
It really does. Darwin's life's work fundamentally revolutionized our understanding of the natural world and our place within it.
And his profound insights, many directly inspired by his Galapagos observations, provided the very foundation for modern biology and continue to shape our understanding of adaptation, biodiversity, and the intricate web of life.
So, as you can clearly see from all these fascinating sources, your trip to Ecuador and the Galapagos Islands back in 2011 was absolutely packed with incredible experiences and a wealth of really interesting information.
It truly was a trip of a lifetime.
From the high-altitude, perpetual spring of Quito to the truly unique volcanic landscapes and the remarkably unafraid wildlife of the Galapagos, it's a region that is just brimming with both natural wonders and a rich, sometimes difficult human history.
Absolutely. So much to take in. Considering all the ongoing conservation challenges we discussed, what do you personally feel is the single most crucial step that needs to be taken to ensure the long-term survival of the Galapagos' incredibly unique ecosystems?
That's tough. Maybe continued, even stricter, control over invasive species and sustainable tourism levels. Knowing that Darwin's own groundbreaking observations during his visit were so absolutely pivotal, does learning more about this change in any way how you might view your own future travels and your understanding of the natural world around you?
Definitely makes you look closer, I think. Notice the small variations. Think about the why. With these remarkable islands having been shaped by these powerful forces of both dramatic volcanic activity and the relentless pressures of natural selection over millions of years, what other places in the world do you think might hold similarly fascinating and complex stories just waiting to be uncovered?
Until next time, The Learner.
Happy travels.